Welcome to the 514th episode of the Jamie Delaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jamie Delaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Welcome. Thanks for listening. Well, I put a podcast out the first of the week, and I got another one up making up for my 10-day delay. And the reason why I'm going ahead and putting a podcast up and not saving it is it's kind of fresh in my head and something that I wanted to do. So here we go. This week, in the practice, I did a walk with the dog. Sometimes we do nutrition lectures, Addie and I. Sometimes we do cooking demonstrations. We have a mobility class. This week was take a walk with the dog. And so we send out a newsletter and email and give the location and put a Facebook post up. And the only thing I really got back was why I can't go. And so I thought, well, I'll show up and see what happens. I'll do a Facebook Live, and I'll talk about something as I walk. It was a nice afternoon. Turns out it was the hottest afternoon we've had so far in Florida. It was 90 degrees at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But I went to the boat ramp where we were going to start our walk, and I was waiting. And eventually one person joined, and she had been very apprehensive about coming, whether she could keep up or not. And she was also even more apprehensive when she didn't see any other cars there, that she was going to have to walk with me alone. But she got out anyway. And so we started out on Facebook Live, and we walked up the lake, and she actually did quite well. We talked about shoes, we talked about Garmin's, we talked about looking at houses that we were walking by in the area and running routes. And she actually, was very surprised at how well she was keeping up and doing so good. And as we came back towards the parking lot, there was another person that had come late and kind of tried to find us, but missed us going a different direction. So we decided to go another half mile or so and meet up. And the best thing that happened was that these two people now are walking buddies. So we went from a poor turnout, but we had a great success story because they're actually scheduled to walk with each other a couple times a week. And I think they'll be great walking buddies and mutually motivational for each other, if that's a thing. So we had two good outcomes. Two people got together to do walking together, and one person actually had a great reward, and then she could walk faster and longer than she thought she could. In other words, she had an extra gear that she didn't know she had. I got a call the next day at the office with someone saying, well, they wish they would have come to the walk, but they were afraid they would get left behind, that they couldn't keep up. And I had made it clear on the Facebook post that, no person would be left behind and all that. But again, apprehension got the best of her, and she decided not to go, and she had regrets. I also had a coaching session with my coach, and we talked about a similar situation and how do you want to run your race coming up. Race in April, race in May, race in July, and then the big race, the big Leadville 100 in August. And how do you want to do that race? And we've been talking about paces and run walks, strategies, and mindset in each of the segments and breaking things down. But it came down to what happens if all that falls apart and I'm getting really close to the cutoff time. So what am I going to do? And we got started on this because if you miss a cutoff time, your wristband is cut off, literally. Not your arm, just the wristband. And depending on where you are, you have to wait for a bus to take you back to another location where you could get a bus to meet your family. And that could be hours long, 3-4 hours long if it's in one particular place. And each of the segments have cutoff times, and they're about 4 to 7 miles apart, some maybe a little longer. And so if you don't make the cutoff time, you have a choice of backtracking to a main cutoff station, so walk back, or again, walk forward when you get take a bus back. And again, both of those would be very sad, or at least very disappointing, or both sad and disappointing, and compounded by having to drag it out a long time to get taken back. So, we talked about I'd rather walk back than wait and sit and stew about not making a cutoff and waiting for a bus and then taking this long, bumpy bus ride just back to an area where, again, another hour back to get to the start. That would be miserable. I'd rather walk the misery off than, wait and just give up. But what could I do to avoid that? And, again, you stick to your pace and, or do you try to do anything? And basically, the conclusion is how do you want to feel about it? Is coming to the conclusion, if you get cut off, I did my best, and therefore I'm happy. And sometimes we say that, and a lot of times in the heat of the moment, whatever we're doing, we say, well, I did my best. But then we have regrets, especially the next day, because we start to think about things, and it's like, well, maybe it wasn't quite my best. It seemed the best for the time being, but not necessarily my true best. Did I leave it all out on the table? How do I want to finish it? And sometimes it comes back, how would you feel about what your decision was today, tomorrow? Because you're going to have to deal with it. So it's like dietary regrets. You go out and you have, some high calorie dessert or imbibe in this dinner that's not plant-based, and you have all these reasons at the time, there's nothing else to eat, I'm with friends, we're celebrating, it's just one birthday party, it's all these things. But then the next day it's like, I really shouldn't have done that. I wish I wouldn't have done that. I could have done these other things. I could have made something. I could have eaten before I went. I could have just, suggested we went someplace else, whatever. But the regrets, how do you not have regrets about the decision you make today? If you go to a marathon and you see people come across the finish line, they're always running. But if you go to mile 23, you'll see a lot of people walking. So somehow, all the pain on mile 23, 24, 25 magically goes away when there's about 3/4 of a mile left, and you hear the finish line and you hear the cowbells and you're able to run across the finish line. Where did that gear come from? Most people don't run a race to walk. They run the race to run. And so when they get to walking, it's because they don't have any running left in them, so to speak. But then somehow it magically reappears. There's actually a physiological mechanism called the central governor that's in our brain somewhere, some connection somewhere that our brain senses, you better back down. You're going to, bad things are going to happen here. You're really exerting yourself. This is getting dangerous. You need to pull back. You're not going to hurt yourself. You're dehydrated, or you might be, you might get injured. All these things, whatever happens, but it's just this undescribable break-like thing that happens that all of a sudden it's like, I can't do anymore. It comes to a screeching stop or slow down. I have to slow down. It's just too dangerous. And it's so convincing that you have to change paths. It's thought to be protective to keep people from killing themselves doing stupid things, but often that central governor is not quite right. There's another gear there that would have been very safe, but as soon as we have that feeling, we start coming up with stories and dialogues to, okay, this is a near-death experience, I should stop it. One funny one that I heard of on a documentary was this guy was running a race, and it was an out-and-back race, 100-mile race, and so he was in the mountains of Georgia, and he ran out, and by the time he got to the turnaround, it was dark, it was cold, he was tired, and he decided to pull the plug. And the next day when he was talking about why he pulled the plug, he said that he just couldn't imagine himself running back through this section where there were, high weeds and grass, and he couldn't see what was in there. And we know there's snakes in there. And he said, I have young kids, and so I couldn't afford to take the risk. But he was okay to take the risk on the way out. But, I guess once was enough. And I had to laugh because that was a story that he was telling himself. And it was valid. He did have kids, I'm sure. And there were snakes, I'm sure, but he made it one way. And so the rules changed on the way back when his central governor said, hey, that's why my coach makes me write down reasons I can stop. And if I don't meet the criteria, then I can't stop. But that doesn't mean I can't sabotage my own race because, again, there are these cutoffs that if I start feeling sorry for myself, I could slow down and then I'd miss the cutoff and, they cut my, it's like I did the best I could. I just missed the cutoff. That's always a reason. And the question was, could I tap into another gear? Is there another gear that I'm not using that I could tap into to keep things going? And that I could be sure that if I missed the cutoff, that I had used all the gears available. And even better, could I practice using gears now so that when all the glorious plans go out the window, I can find another gear to get me through and to keep me ahead of the lady with the scissors. With my training, there are speed days, and there are days where recovery days. And the recovery days are supposed to run a certain time or distance at a very easy pace. It's recovery, just to kind of get the lactic acid out of the legs, move around so you're not stiff from the hard workout the day before, get the cobwebs out, but you're still recovering. Shouldn't be perceived as difficult. So you go out, you start running down the street, and you feel the heaviness in your legs, and things aren't moving quite the way they are, but it's okay because it's a recovery run, and kind of plodding, and your feet are kind of slapping on the ground, and you're not moving very well. Just don't have any get up and go. Happy when the dog stops so that you can, take a little bit of a walk. Not pushing the pace. Keep reminding yourself that it's easy. I'm not supposed to be doing anything hard today. I'm just taking my time. I'm recovering. And you still have this blah. The blah is just there. You're just putting in the time, calling the workout in. Nothing, not really feeling that great. And it just, boom, it's over. It doesn't, and afterwards you don't feel that recovered. On the other hand, as things start to loosen up, if you start to say, okay, I'm going to look at my form. I might go slower, but I'm going to try to have good form. I'm going to try to pay attention to my cadence or my posture and see how I feel. And the next thing you know, you start loosening up and you kind of have a good feeling. And after it's over, you feel energized and feel good. And, it's like, okay, I recovered good. I'm ready for more workouts. This week, I did a speed workout in the morning, had a very, very busy day. And I had to do a strength workout. And it was actually the same day that I did walk with the doc at 90 degrees. So did my morning session by myself, my speed workout, did an afternoon, had a busy day at the office, a couple other things, when I got home, made dinner, on and on and on, different things, and I still had to do my strength workout. It's like my legs were heavy, they were a little sore. It's like, I don't think I have it. I don't think I have it today. Maybe I'll just do a stretch, maybe I'll just do one set. Then you get started. It's like, well, I'd like to do this particular lift. I'll do these, and I won't do the hard ones. And then maybe I'll just do one hard one. Well, I've done one hard one. Maybe I'll do all 4 sets. Well, now I'm halfway through. I might as well just, not look ahead, but just keep plugging at it. And I think I can get this in. And then the next thing you know, you finish the workout. And you really feel good about it. And lo and behold, all those achy muscles are gone. And I actually felt better after I was finished than when I started. If my central governor is in the works before I started, it certainly wasn't accurate. And people talk about motivation. They talk about, I need to have an accountability partner, or maybe we as coaches or physicians, we try to motivate people for years. I have put marathon posters up in the office and my medals trying to motivate people to run marathons, and nobody ever did until I kind of changed the practice, and those people came wanting to run a marathon anyway. So motivating people, and I've coached track, I've coached high school kids, I've coached adults, and if somebody really wants to, then they do, but if they don't, there's not much motivating them. And the same thing goes on for plant-based nutrition and health. If, people just aren't into changing their diet, and all the reasons in the world just don't quite get them over the hump. They might see the facts, know the facts, even believe it's true, but it's just too much to actually accomplish. And it's kind of like, motivation leaves you at the door. It turns its back on you very, very quickly when something happens that you don't really want to do. And when it comes down to it, the only thing you can do is put the car into gear and go. And it is kind of like cars. If you think about it, almost everybody drives an automatic car. And, some of the fancier cars have pretend gear shifters. I forget what they're called, but I did have one that you can just push a button and change gears. It wasn't really a stick that you change gears and push the clutch in. It was very easy, just a tap of your finger. That's not really changing gears. And if you're in an automatic car, it just kind of subtly changes gears as you accelerate, and you don't really feel it much. It's just nice and calm, and you go faster and you go slower, but you don't notice what gear you're in when you're driving. But if you're in a stick shift, there's that little jolt when you put the clutch in and you change gears, and you get a little bit of a surge, and you hear the engine roar a little bit, and it's motivating, even though it can be a pain in the rear at a stoplight or on a hill, it's still fun. There's still some excitement about changing gears. There's a change in force, there's a change in flow that wakes us up versus that steady regular, just cruising down the highway, just being bored. Trying not cruise control, I guess, trying not to fall asleep when you're driving. Same thing running, go for that steady pace. Oh, I love running at that steady, easy pace, not too hard, just, nice and easy down the road. But what happens is you start to slow over time. You get slower and slower and slower as you go, because you're not changing gears, and you just kind of get tired and you kind of get stiff, and you just kind of slow down, and eventually you'll be moving pretty slow once you get to the cross the line. And you contribute that to all kinds of reasons. You're getting tired, you're getting fatigued. Best you could do. Same thing with nutrition. Best I could do. So up until last week, I'm doing all my training trying to figure out how to make these cutoffs. Just make it in time. Well, maybe make it a half hour before the cutoff time. But I'm not leaving myself any room. But what I'm trying to do in my head psychologically is make it as easy as I can for myself to do something hard, to try to decrease the pain in this activity so that I can finish but not be too... In my head, maybe it won't be too bad. But the reality of it is going to be bad, whether it's 29 hours and 59 minutes, that the cutoff's 30, or whether it's 29 or 28, it's not going to feel good. There's going to be discomfort. And in my head, playing this game of how do I make this nice and easy is probably not the right attitude. Because if the wheels fall off, or if there's some glitch in my programming or in my process or how things go that day, a rainstorm, a lightning storm, whatever, then that could blow everything up, and I'm left with, well, I did the best I could. So now the tide is turning. It's like, how do I train How do I train to get gears? What do I have to do to have more gears than when things start to go awry? No problem. I'm just going to gear down and we're going to get this done. So I'm going for all I have to do is to maintain this pace and I can finish because the other people's paces are up so I can mimic what they did. Or what can I do to finish the best and have the best race I can for me? For sure, not just the best I think I can do. When it comes to nutrition and this thing as well, better than I was, but not as good as I could be. You've certainly heard or said, we didn't eat that bad, but we eat better than we used to. If coworkers go out for lunch or fast food or a place you don't think there's going to be any choices, what do? Don't put them out. There's more of them than you. You're not the majority. You got to go where they want to go. I don't want to make a fuss. I don't want to debate my diet. I don't want to talk about plant-based nutrition. They hate hearing about it anyway. Nobody cares. Nobody's supportive. I don't want to have to disclose that I'm dieting anyway or that I've changed, or I don't want to talk about my health problems. And this one time doesn't matter anyway because, it's just one time. Not. Or perhaps you compromise and you go to that restaurant and you look down. It's like, well, I'm here. I could get the fries. They're vegan. Well, thank you, Robert Kennedy. We're now putting beef fat back into the fries. So it's not any healthier, but they're certainly not vegan anymore. You get a couple sides and, cheese comes on that salad and you push it off as best you can instead of send it back because you don't want to be that person to send it back when it comes with cheese. On the other hand, you could learn by ordering and emphasizing to the waitress that you don't want cheese on the salad, on the side, on the pizza, on the whatever, and actually make a stand and send it back. Because if you do send it back, then they'll learn as well that when you say no cheese, they can write it down and actually, take it back to the cook so that you don't have cheese. And you kind of get another gear by getting the courage to even ask your coworkers, hey, instead of going here, could we go to this restaurant because they have an option that I can actually order? Or maybe, this is great. I didn't order very much. Maybe next time we could go here. Get a gear. Remember your why so the next day you don't have to feel bad about your choice the day before. And if you start practicing, you can start observing what it is that you do, how you start to stutter or avoid or just give in because, again, nobody supports you and everybody else is doing it and all those other things. There's nothing easy about it, but most people have that extra gear if they want to use it. And when they use that extra gear and they see the weight loss on the scale or they see the cholesterol come down, they feel good about it. They don't have that, dieting never works for me, my cholesterol's always been high, this is just not the way for me, and so forth. So notice in your workouts, your walks, your runs, your nutritional choices, notice if you use gears or your automatic, not really pay attention cruise control. And I dare you to shake it up a little bit, change gears, feel the engine roar, and, it's even speed work starts to make you feel good, and you start to look forward to it even a little bit. And just as an update on my strength workouts and my broad jump, it's getting better. My broad jump is getting longer. I probably am to my 4th grade level at this point. So who knows? When my grandson comes to town, we might have a broad jump jump off. Who knows? There was a study reported in the New England Journal looking at the global effects of cardiovascular risk factors in lifetime estimates, meaning risk factors, how do they affect either getting cardiovascular disease or death, or I should say survival rates? 2,078,748 people, 133 cohorts, 39 countries, 6 continents, looked at the lifetime risk of cardiovascular disease and death from any cause. And they estimated that up to age 90. Risk factors that they looked at were hypertension, high cholesterol, either being below normal BMI or above normal BMI, diabetes, and smoking up until the age of 50 or at age 50. And they looked at the lifetime risk for cardiovascular disease, 23% in women, 38% in men, who had all 5 risk factors. If you looked at people that had 0 risk factors versus 5 risk factors, the number of years free from cardiovascular disease, so the number of years that you get bonus by not having cardiovascular disease, 13.3 in women, 10.6 in men. The extra years free from dying, 14.5 in women versus 11.8 in men. If you look at modifying high blood pressure at an age of 55 but less than 60, so you get your blood pressure under control less than age 60 but more than age 55, that added most years to your life for cardiovascular disease, free of cardiovascular disease. If you quit smoking before you were 60, it added the most years to your life. If you have 0 risk factors, you have a 50% chance if you're a woman living to age 90 and about a 35% chance as a man. If you are a woman and you have no risk factors versus 5 risk factors at age 70, you have a 60% to 82% survival. So if you had 0 risk factors, 82% chance of living, 60% if you had all 5 risk factors. Men, that was 76% versus 50%. So it pays to get those risk factors under control. Doesn't mean with 6 medications. Ideally, I think your biggest bang for your buck is to get rid of those risk factors. So normalizing your BMI, quitting smoking, getting your diabetes down, hemoglobin A1C less than 5.5, and having a weight in a normal BMI range. Interestingly, when they looked at cholesterol, non-HDL cholesterol, so everything LDL, IDL, total cholesterol, if it was less than 30 or greater than 130, there was no change in the death rate. So body mass index, blood pressure, diabetes, smoking, all were associated with cardiovascular risk and increased death rate. If at 45 years of age you had 2 risk factors, there's a 14-year difference in your life expectancy. So there's a leeway in your 50s to 60s to get things under control. But if you already have risk factors at 45, the clock is ticking a lot faster, and it's time to get risk factors under control. The cholesterol thing doesn't really pan out, as far as this LDL and or non-HDL cholesterol. And it may be such that, again, cholesterol may be something that is a side effect to some of these diseases as opposed to a primary cause. Certainly doesn't bode well for driving your cholesterol down to 100. I think eating a healthy plant-based diet, not oxidizing, people do just fine. Again, once your cholesterol in a good range, but I think that as overall, I think the risk of statins in most of these instances will probably make things worse, increase your risk of diabetes than not. So this makes people think a little bit more and supports some of those ideas that cholesterol may not be exactly what we think it is in some respects. But nevertheless, high blood pressure, diabetes, weight, smoking are risk factors that will significantly affect your lifespan. And of course, this was looking at cardiovascular disease in total lifespan, not looking at other causes. And that's why there's the discrepancy. But again, being overweight, diabetes also plays a risk factor for cancers and other diseases as well. So a lot of room to change gears and improve your quality of life and quantity of life by adopting plant-based nutrition. We have had great success in getting people's cholesterol, yes, but diabetes, weight, hypertension under control with a plant-based diet. Certainly quality of life improves, but it's not easy. It's a change, and it's a change that you have to be mindful of and, be dedicated to make some of the changes. If you have any questions or you'd like to have some coaching available or have some help in making the transition, we'd certainly love to help you. You can go over to Dr. Delaney, DoctorDulaney, and .com and figure out what button you need to push for us to help you. There's multiple ways you can join the practice. We'd love to participate. We have strength training, dietary education. We have a giant website with recipes and wellness programs and workouts, and we'd love to help you find multiple gears so that you could live well until you don't. So thanks always for listening. If you like this podcast, share it with your friends. Give me a 5-star on iTunes, and drop me a note at jamie@drdelaney.com. It's JAMI if you have any questions. Thanks again for listening.